When you've got the proper sight alignment, you'll see the front sight razor sharp. We're going to start with a blank target, so you learn to focus your attention on the sights, not the target.
Right.
The rear sight looks slightly blurred, and the target looks a bit blurred too. There should be an equal amount of light showing on either side as you look through the rear sight to the front sight.
Got it.
And the top of the front sight should be flush with an imaginary line across the top of the rear sight. Then, you center that line on where you want the bullet to hit.
Most expert instructors agree that good shooting begins behind the sight picture. You must learn to focus on the front sight. The target looks blurred. The rear sight looks blurred. Front sight is in focus with the target resting atop it like a bubble. Sight picture and trigger control are the foundations of good shooting. The problem with many shooters is that they want to watch the target, especially if it's moving. The eye just does that normally. Your brain tells your eyes to follow that moving target, but when you do, you miss. You've got to watch your front sight. The target should be a blur. The front post must be centered in the rear notch with equal amounts of light on either side. Experts have varying opinions as to the width of the rear blade or whether or not it should be solid black or have a white line or dot. Other top shooters recommend undercut front sights, black sights, colored sights. The opinions vary widely on the width of notch and the front sight. Talk to the experienced people at your range or your neighborhood gun shop. Get an idea of what's comfortable for you. It boils down to personal preference. Once you've been shooting a while, you'll be able to make your own decisions. Like tennis, golf, archery. Shooting is a sport of concentration. Whenever I come away from a range, I'm always very relaxed. The reason is, I put all the other problems out of my mind when I'm concentrating on that front sight. It's almost like a form of meditation. Everything else is out of my mind except the front sight. Some shooters say it's the most important lesson they learned about shooting. The second basic skill is trigger control. It's true. Squeeze the trigger is probably the piece of advice most frequently heard about gun handling. It's true. It may change in a semi or professional match, but for target practice at the gun range, a smooth squeeze will most often be followed by an accurate shot. There's also the problem gun instructors call the crunch. You start pulling the trigger with your finger, but before the hammer cycles, you clutch the gun with your whole hand as if you were going to crush it. Some experts theorize that this is a person's fear of the blast recoil, but the gun jerks down. The bullet will hit somewhere out in front downrange, but might altogether miss the target. Imagine that trigger finger disconnected from the rest of your hand. It should move freely while your other fingers maintain a constant tension on the gun. The only finger that should move is the trigger finger. Some instructors pull the trigger with the outside of the first joint, while other shooters use the tip of their finger. Try both methods and see what feels natural for you. Use the same method on both automatics and revolvers. Making doubly sure the gun is unloaded, practice your trigger pull by dry firing. Do it often. Sight the gun at a target and squeeze the trigger. You'll strengthen the muscles in your trigger finger. Become more familiar with the feel of the gun and sharpen your shooting skill. On the gun range, practice both live and dry firing. Be surprised every time that gun goes off. Because if you anticipate the blast recoil, you'll flinch and be way off the target. Try loading 3 cylinders of a revolver with live rounds, the remaining 3 with fired rounds. On the firing line, spin the cylinder. You won't know if it's a live round coming up. It's easy to tell when you flinch. And great to know when you don't. The same is true for automatics. secret to a good, smooth, safe draw is to have no wasted movement. Minimize your body motions. You can use this grip for either revolvers or automatics. The strong hand thumb knocks off the safety. The weak hand grabs the strong hand around the gun, and the weak hand thumb pushes down on top of the strong hand thumb. The weak hand index finger pushes up on the bottom of the trigger guard, resulting in a very stable and balanced, strong grip. Close group in the black. The grip I've shown you does an excellent job of controlling recoil. Also, both your thumbs are safely tucked away. The grip works well with revolvers and automatics. Remember that any grip that exposes one of the thumbs is potential for trouble. Both thumbs should be tucked away like this. Your grip should be as tight on the gun as possible, but short of your hands shaking or trembling. There's a lot of exercises you can do to strengthen your grip. Many competitive match shooters lift weights and use various types of grip exercises. One of the least expensive tools is an ordinary rubber ball. Doing several sets like this each day will greatly develop your hand muscles and help build shooting strength.